Hello and welcome back to the Heart and Soul Conversations. Thank you for being here and watching. And thank you, Esther Tankhilevich, for being here and being our guest today. If you guys haven't seen Esther yet, she is an assertiveness expert and she has worked in corporate environments, in leadership, etc. So she's built a track record of leadership and of being able to be assertive as a leader, but also in private. And today I want to pick her brain on how to improve assertiveness within our personal relationships. Reason being that personally, I've always found it fairly easy to be assertive when it is in work environments, but I've found that at times, at least in my relationships, I'm struggling to be as assertive as I usually am. So Esther, first of all, welcome. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
being here.
So good to be here.
Give us the gist. How can we be more assertive in our personal relationships?
Yeah, so I think sort of similar to our last session where we talked about your sort of good foundation for assertiveness as a start point. I think that the key first piece is having a good sense of yourself and a good sense of knowing you and your values, and really what's top of your list in somebody. And if it was a romantic relationship, for example, it could be well, I'll tell you mine. What was always top of my list when I was before I met my fiance was somebody who had a really kind heart. That was the most attractive quality to me. And I think it's interesting because I loved that in someone. I loved seeing kindness and how they'd speak to their grandmother, or, kindness with their family or with a stranger on the street. I found that really endearing and really, attractive. And because that was what I wanted in somebody, that's what I found. That's what I generally have had in my relationships. And I think when you set that good bar for yourself, then you're really calling in those energies and that into your life. So just deciding whether it's openness, transparency, trust, spontaneity, fun, it could be just being silly. It's whatever really lights you up and you want to see in somebody, just having a good sense of that, I think can be a really good start point, so that you're not just settling for anything and for anyone.
100%. And what I'm hearing here is basically to have that clarity before you even enter a relationship. And I think this is a really important shift a lot of us need to make, to have clarity about what it is that you're looking for in a person, rather than just going by physical attraction and that first infatuation you have with someone because they're so hot and so beautiful, or they are kind of, I don't know, in a job that you find attractive, and then trying to afterwards mold that person into who you think you want them to be. That's unfair. If you've ever been on the receiving end of that, that's really uncomfortable. Versus to look out for, are they meeting the key criteria of who you want to be with? And if so, all right, we can work with everything else and we can mold everything else and learn together how we can function. But if they are not that, to honor what they are about, but knowing that maybe you're better off as good friends than in a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've even seen, with friends, exactly as you're saying, where there's almost a desperation to mold this person who doesn't display the qualities of somebody that they want, but because I think they want to be with somebody more than they have defined who they are. So it's sort of almost like a grab bag, like, well, these bits will do and this will be okay, and things will get better, instead of sort of starting from that place of, again, sort of that self-certainty and assuredness to say, and it's a self-esteem. I think it gives you self-esteem to know what you value and what you want from someone, and start from there, versus sort of being like a vacuum where anything can come in and it's just going to be okay.
Yeah, love yourself enough to say no to what's not right for you. Now imagine you have found that person, and you have, for whatever reason, defined that, yep, the basics are right, the bones of the relationship are worth the effort of being in a relationship, because truly, I mean, relationship is wonderful and it's often hard work,
Of course.
at least if you kind of want to make it in the long run. But now you have stuff showing up in the relationship, and good luck trying to find a relationship where nothing ever is misaligned, because we're two entire different universes colliding, trying to make it work together. Now, say you have one person who is rather assertive, often it's the male, doesn't have to be, who is kind of quite set in their ways, doing their thing, quite happily plodding along. And I'm obviously not speaking at all of personal experience here. And then you come in and you have certain standards, or you want certain things done, and you finally work up the courage to say something, and the person shuts it down, or doesn't want it, or doesn't agree. How do you be assertive then?
I would say, again, that a really important consideration before you launch into the next part, the doing of the conversation, is to check your energy. So you can approach the next piece with frustration, anger, irritation, and then what will flow from then. But just to give yourself a bit of a pause, and perhaps start with empathy. So it could be it could be like, they might have had a really long day, they might be super tired, they might not have heard me properly, or just giving yourself a bit of pause, and then maybe just starting with I'm noticed that, I'm not sure how they shut it down. It depends, but let's say you could just say, look, I noticed you seem a little bit on edge, or have you had is everything okay? Have you had how was your day? Is everything all right? And just start with just like, how are you? A bit of a sort of a check-in first. And then with a sort of a more neutral ground, you can then say, hey, so, I just sort of explained this to you. And again, and I'm actually thinking about something in terms of a parenting technique, but sometimes more of sort of sports casting, where you just sort of call it as you see it, without getting into an argument. So just saying, I just shared something with you and I felt like you really just didn't hear me, or I feel like you really discounted it, and it was really important for me. And I just want you to understand that it's really important to me, and I just want you to really hear me and really respond. Or, just a bit of a sports casting approach can just keep it in a more neutral footing before, the emotions rise.
100%. And being aware of how the other person functions as well, because some people do need time to walk away, mull it over, and then come back with a response. I know that I'm personally very fast in my thinking, and I basically always have an answer pretty straight away. However, there are people unlike me who do need time to process. And if I try to push them too quickly, I can't get a proper answer, and I can't get like a fully well thought through response from them. So to learn also how the other person functions, and be willing to tune in with that and give them what they need. It's basically like a true partnership approach, right? Where you don't treat the other person as an adversary, but you're really, as much as you can, without feeling like you're the parent in the relationship, facilitating cooperation.
And also not just seeing them as an adversary, but not seeing them as a carbon copy of you. So they're not going to be the same as you in terms of when they're ready to listen, or things that are top of their list compared to what's top of your list, and just I think understanding those differences, like I know, I pick my moments when I want to talk to my fiance about something important. I actually have to like set the tone with him. I have to frame it and say, I need to talk to you about something important, because I know then that he'll sort of go, okay, right, okay, cool. What are we talking about? Instead of just trying to kind of catch him like when we're making dinner and I just shoot things at him that are important. And he's like, wait, what? So, you know, I think because I know how he works, and I know it's like he needs a bit of a setup sometimes to like get in the right frame of mind. So I think both of those things are important, not seeing them as the enemy, not seeing them as the carbon copy. And you know, the better you understand them and the better you understand yourself, the better you can kind of construct better communication scenarios, because you can keep both of those things in mind.
Absolutely. My very favorite book in that regard, you might have or might not have come across this, is Alison Armstrong's The Queen's Code. Actually interviewing her soon. I'm super thrilled about getting her on board here in a few months. And she says basically the carbon copy thing as well. She says that often we are measuring ourselves as women against the perfect woman, about how we should be, and then everything that we are falling short of. And then she says, then often when we are judging men or looking at men, we will measure them against the perfect woman. So it's not even against us, but against kind of how we think we should be. And then basically how they should be in response, which is like a double negative. Neither is a man in their mind functioning at all like a woman in the first place, nor should we hold them to that almost impossible perfect standard that we are holding ourselves against. And it's
fascinating.
A good thinking framework that I must admit doesn't always kind of stick when I'm in conversation, but I've noticed myself being able to much better respond to these things. And what you said is actually one of her key points, to announce that you need to have an important conversation and ask specifically for a time when's a good time to talk about that, so that the other person, especially if the other person is male, can be fully present with you and can really take it in and have that conversation rather than actually being focused on something else. What else are elements of assertiveness in relationship, Esther?
Yeah, I think another really important piece, which, you know, has a lot of layers and complexity to it, but is just the self-esteem and enoughness. That ultimately assertiveness is about being able to communicate your views or speak up for your views and your boundaries in a calm and level-headed way. And obviously then what makes that very difficult is if with a low self-esteem you can have that lack of boundaries, where you don't draw the lines where they should be drawn, or you say you're drawing the lines and then nothing really happens, you don't follow through on them, which obviously then can lead to sort of lack of respect if you're setting boundaries that aren't actually boundaries. So I think just that self-esteem and enoughness of it's like ring fencing yourself and having this sort of self protection, self-preservation, that means you have something to defend, you have something to stick up for. And what I've seen is that that lack of assertiveness can come when just the person just doesn't have that solid foundation to do that from.
Etc. How do we come back then, though, when we have probably initially quite happily agreed to things, say, I don't know, doing a lot of the housework or whatever, and over time maybe somebody was a housewife at some point and raising the kids, and therefore feeling like it's an equal balance, you're going out doing the work, I'm doing the house, but then eventually are transitioning into work again, part-time, full-time, but then somehow, for example, the housework still is on them.
Yeah,
I can't say I have fully been there, done that, because I've had partners who've been willing to chip in work-wise, maybe not fully equally, but at least to a good degree. But how do you then have assertiveness in changing the rules that have established themselves over time?
Yeah, I think one good way to sort of tackle this is to actually think of yourselves as a team.
Nice.
You're a team and you had a game plan that was working for that time and that season. And, you know, you're now feeling like it's time to review the game plan. And I think if you look at it like that, like, okay, can we just come back and talk about how things are going at the moment? Because here's what's changed, here's what's different, here's how I'm feeling. And I'm thinking maybe, you know, I just want to talk about how it might look different and how we might be able to tackle this differently. And just, you know, kind of mapping it out in a more, you know, neutral framework. And as a team, you're a team together. I think the more solid you operate like a team and plan and strategize like a team, you know, get over hurdles like a team, the more you're collaborating together, because of course things have to move and bend and shift. So I think kind of starting with that frame can help you both kind of problem solve together and, like, you know, negotiate how that might look, and gives you the room to be open and clear about your needs and wants and lines, and, you know, so you can find a good kind of middle point.
And I love this whole team framework that you're bringing, because it's basically taking it from you and I against each other to you and I together against the challenges, or dealing with the challenges that we are facing. So it's not you and I as adversaries, but it's us as a team in basically in pursuit of that happiness, where we are both giving each other the best that we have, and being able to communicate with that in mind, rather than with the frustration. The other thing that comes to mind with that is not operate off of unspoken expectations. That's this whole thing of, after everything that I've done for you, now you never dot dot dot, you know, whether that's from like an elderly mother, or from like like a sibling, or from an old friend, or from a partner. That's like the ickiest thing, because we should be able to expect from other people that they are giving what they are willing to give, and if they are giving in good spirits. We should be doing the same. Ideally catch ourselves when we start giving with resentment, and have those kind of conversations you are suggesting, rather than keeping giving begrudgingly until we eventually blow up and we are angry at the other person. So I think clearly defining mutual expectations, rather than just thinking that how we've done it in our family or how other people are doing it is the way it rolls, right?
Yeah, because again, it's that internalizing, that, you know, the internalizing of the frustration, and then it's like it eventually needs a pressure valve. And, you know, because you just keep internalizing it, and then it's just going to come out in some ridiculous moment, and your partner's going to be like, whoa, what's going on? And you're like, this is not right now. This is like the last 3 months I've been steaming about this. And so it helps no one. It's so much better to have this regular pressure valve, you know, where it's not building up, to just go, even think of it as like a 1 to 10 of frustration. It's like, if you're talking about it when it's the 2s and the 3s, and you can just be open and vocal with about it, then you're not going to be, you know, building up to a 9 where you're just like losing it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Esther. This has been really interesting and insightful. Funnily enough, I find often in these kind of conversations, that's with you, that's with many other people I've been talking to, there is very rarely these pieces that are complete rocket science. A lot of that is just very common knowledge, and very kind of just logical thinking behind it. However, it's so valuable to sometimes put the spotlight and the focus on a topic and speak to someone who's been doing a lot of work around this and who is helping people consistently dealing with those kind of challenges. So I appreciate so much that you've made the time to be here with us. I think another time we'll need to do this again and talk about parenting, because it's such a thing. I'm parenting a teenager, and just as we were talking, it's just like, okay, so how do I do that with my 6-year-old? That's a different topic for a different time.
I'm there. Thank you so much for having me. I've loved it.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Esther. Take care. And as always, for you guys, if you've been watching this, if you have enjoyed our content, make sure that you follow our channel. And if you like, hit the bell button so that you get regular updates when we are releasing new content. If you have any questions, please pop them in the comment section below. And underneath the video, we are going to leave both our contact details and Esther's contact details. So if you are really inspired by her, if you want to hear more, if you want to work with her, there will be the link to her website and a couple more pieces of information, so you can find her if you're interested.
Yes.
Thank you. Or interested, if you're interesting as well, and if you're interested also. Thank you so much for being here, Esther. And I trust we'll see each other again.
Absolutely. Thanks, Henrika.